Good morning, Year 6, and here is your Wednesday's English lesson. So today we're going to carry on with your plan for your fantasy story. It was really nice to see you yesterday and gather our ideas together in our live lesson, and hopefully you're ready now to commit those ideas to your planning frame today, and I'm going to guide you through it first and then you can go away and finish your own. So this is what we looked at yesterday, how we looked at the different stages of the Leon and the place between story, and we pulled out what those the generic structure points are, and your story is going to follow those same ideas. So your main character goes somewhere, then your main character does something, then your main character goes through a portal and is transported to another world, and in that other world events take place, and then to prove they had been there and it wasn't just a dream, your main character will return with a memento. Yesterday on our flip chart we started to gather ideas about characters, and hopefully you've got yours to hand, and you had a go at choosing a few, and you can now decide which ones are going to fit better for your overall story. We spent a lot of time yesterday. We looked at two ideas. We looked at Vidic's idea of a candy land, and with that candy king and a normal boy, 7-year-old boy, going into the candy land. And we also looked at the idea of like Harry Potter or Hogwarts, a kind of wizarding school, and an evil teacher there. We talked about those settings and we thought, how might we describe them? We're trying to use our words, our phrases, to help the reader visualise what this setting looks like, and all that work we've done with similes and metaphors and alliteration to help create that picture. You did a fantastic job in your poems, and it's now about using some of those skills in your story. We talked yesterday as well about portals and how it might be a door or a box like in the Leon story, but then it might simply be a hole their characters fall down, or a trapdoor, or a pond, or down a slide. It's up to you. Once you're in that fantasy world, we want that problem. Every story has a problem and resolution, and some stories have more than one problem and resolution. And hopefully you've got some ideas now about what events take place in your other world, how the characters react to them. What's the impact on us? Do we feel for that main character like Leon and want him to get back? And how do they then return? Do they return through the portal which they entered? So I said to you at the end of yesterday, today we'll be looking at using our IPEAL planning frame, which we're used to using now. So at the top up here, we can fill in the pack. We talked about the purpose, to entertain, the audience being children or adults or both, and the type being fiction and narrative genre. We're now going to apply our generic structure into that place. It might help you if you label on your plan these 5 events so you don't forget where they're going to fall. The plan is on the website as a PDF, so you can download that. You don't have to print it out, you can create your own on a piece of paper, that's absolutely fine too. So just to be clear then, the main character goes somewhere, so you might just want to jot that down next to the introduction. And remember, the introduction is where I introduce the characters, or you introduce the characters and you set the scene, and we talk about it linking to the 5 W's. But maybe not giving everything away, because we want the reader to be hooked and to read on. Then the main character does something, and this is where our story is building up. Remember, we've got 3 main points. These might be a paragraph each, or you might have a few paragraphs within this point. But the idea is you put your main point here in the first box, and then the elaboration and detail box, you add that detail in. So you're building up that interest for the reader. Then the main character goes through a portal and is transported to another world. That fits into the problem section. The events take place within that resolution. And then the main character returns with a memento at the end. Now we're going to focus, as you can see here, I'm just focusing on this top half. just going to move myself. So I just want to show you now how this might look for when you do it today. Remember, it's a planning frame. It's really important to put that detail into our plans, because then we can tick things off as we write, and it kind of helps us. It's there as a scaffold, a structure to help us. Remember, you need to keep it short, bullet pointed. You can't write in full sentences because you wouldn't fit the detail in. You just want short notes. You're only writing for yourself here, so you should be able to understand what your notes say. I've also included down the left there the fantastic lenses, going from the top: feeling, noticing, smell, taste, action, touch and hearing. And if you bear those in mind, some people like to draw those symbols where they're going to appear in your plan, or use those to kind of make sure you've included them all. So I'm going to model to you how you might begin to fill this in, and I'm going to take, because we spent a while yesterday looking at the Candyland, I'm going to take that as our example. So the first bit, where we introduce the characters and setting for introduction, we've got 7-year-old, I've given him a name, I hope that's alright if I did, and call him Todd. And after school he visits a local sweet shop to spend his pocket money. And of course when I write that, I'm going to elaborate it. I might say how much and where. Is it at the bottom of his road? Has he not been for a while? Has he gone there with anybody else? And I want to try now build up this impression of an old-fashioned sweet shop. So I might talk about the smells, curious smells, lots of boxes and jars. If you've been to one of those oldie-worldy sweet shops and you get rows upon rows of lovely jars of sweets, and maybe weighing scales and glass cabinets. And I thought there might be a bay window in the front of the shop, and in there's lots of shiny boxes of sweets balanced in like a tower, like a pyramid shape in the bay window, and that's what Todd then focuses on. So just 3 bullet points there, but that will help me when I come to write, and I can simply tick them off as I write. Okay, so next to the build-up, the first bit, well, we've kind of moved our character to focus on those sweets in the window. So he chooses a box, and I'm going to say it's kind of that shimmery colours, purple and silver iridescent, you know, where you kind of, they look a bit two-tone, and that's what's catching his eye. So I'm thinking about the noticing lens here. I have a label on the front which says "Try me and you'll love me," and maybe that's why Todd decides he wants to buy that, or he might want to use that tin. He's got something in mind for it after he's eaten the sweets. His kind of reactions, and I guess this comes with touch and his feelings. He's a bit nervous and excited because it's kind of inviting him to try them. So his palms are sweaty, and that tells the reader, kind of implies how he's feeling without actually telling me. So that's the main points. And then my detail, he struggles to open it, and I think that kind of builds suspense for the reader. If I'm taking my time to explain, all he's done is seen a box, got it and opened it, and he could be looking around this sweet shop, and maybe he's the only person in the shop, and you notice the shopkeeper watching him closely. Does the shopkeeper know what's inside that box, or what might happen? So he opens the box, and I was thinking maybe there's chocolate balls, or they could be wrapped in silver wrappers, and he has to fumble and undo those. But I wanted to use that idea, and I think we talked about it yesterday, of opening this box and it's a portal to the Candyland. So I want you to carry on. You would do yours in the same and fill in the problem and the resolution and the ending. Now, the bottom half of the IPL grid is that language section, which sometimes people find hard to fill in, or they're not sure what to put in there, but it's equally as important. So you can see here I've got the links and openers and the conjunction boxes, and I just want to refer us back to that knowledge organiser. On the left hand side was all the different grammar features you'd expect to find in a fantasy story. So I'm going to pinch a few of those, magpie them, and they're fronted adverbials, but I kind of got my sweet shop in mind. And of course, when you've done the rest of your plan, you'll have other parts of Candyland which would help you with this. But at the moment, I've got inside the sweet shop, meanwhile, silently, standing in the window on the shelves. And note how I've used a comma after that fronted adverbial to split up the clause. Then the other side, the joining, the conjunctions with our fanboys and hands and feet, I've just taken a few of those to remind me I want to include those in. And just like with the other bits of the plan, you can tick them off as you do them. The other part of the plan, right at the bottom, is the language. So topic words, try and think of relevant vocabulary to match your theme. So if I'm thinking of this Candyland idea, I maybe want sweets, toffees, lollipops, sugar, jars, boxes, bags, marshmallows, iridescent colours. So it just triggers it off to help me in my mind. Also, in that box we talk about, didn't we, about trying to include the year 3, 4 words and the 5, 6 words. You might want to pause the video here and maybe magpie 4 or 5 from each list, which ones link to your story. So from this list, and then the 5, 6 ones. And I know it sounds obvious, but make sure you spell them accurately. And it really helps if you start to underline them in your work too. I had a go at picking a few out, which I think would link to our story here. Believe, favourite, notice, although, determined, desperate, marvellous, suggest. And again, you can tick them when you've included them. Of course, you might use other ones as well, but these are just to make sure you do include them. Remember, we're going to be using this scoring grid on Monday when you've written your story, and you should see your scores go up a lot from your cold task. So it's really useful to refer to this and decide, well, how are you going to show off all these things in your plan? Some of those are on that planning frame, so the front adverbials, the fanboys, the hands and feet, and all those different points. But you've got some other bits at the bottom with a complex sentence, a use of a simile. So your tasks for today's lesson, I want you to complete your IPL planning frame with the details for your chosen story. So you probably looked at 2 ideas yesterday, but you've just focused on 1. Don't forget, as I said, check against those key spellings for the years 3, 4 and 5 and 6. Please remember you've spelt them correct. Check you've spelt them correctly. Words like determined, and remember it's got the ED at the end. And then we'll have a live team lesson tomorrow where I'll model to you how you might start off your story, and then you'll have the rest of that lesson and Friday's lesson to finish them. And then next week we will edit and score them. I look forward to seeing your plans and see what ideas you've got. Thank you, Year 6.